Welcome to Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And this is why you have to tune in every morning right at 6, because you never know who is going to be in the studio this morning. We are being joined by candidate for United States Senate, Mike Sapraicone. Good morning.
Morning, Frank. Great to be here.
What a nice surprise. You were just walking by on Market Street. I said, come on in.
I had nothing to do at 6 in the morning this morning, and I happened to be in Corning, and I said, hey, what's Frank doing this morning?
Perfect timing. But the big question, the hard-hitting question, how was the Chemung County Fair?
Oh, it was terrific. I had
Isn't
such
that
a
nice?
great time.
Yeah.
We walked around for about 2.5 hours and just meeting everybody. And you'll see in the next couple hours here, I'm a big talker. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
I've learned to listen a little, but I love to talk. So just shaking hands and listening to people. And so everybody's been so wonderful to me. It's just been terrific.
And they made some big changes to the fair. So and I hear it's going great. I mean, I think admission's $2.
$2, pretty good, not too bad.
Now
It's very reasonable. But a big crowd too. When I was there about 4:30,
Good.
and I guess they were getting ready for the concert. I think
the
it was
Oak Ridge Boys. Yep.
last night,
Yep.
and that brought in a crowd my age kind of crowd. Okay,
Yeah, okay.
So which they were excited about, but it's looking good.
Well, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Why did you decide to run for the United States Senate? This is not an easy job. I'm sure you're traveling a lot. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Why did you decide to run?
Well, I'm a retired New York City detective. I did that for 20 years. So this is kind of easy in compared to that. But I enjoyed that job a lot. And I did that for 20 years. I'm retired for 24 years. And I opened a small security company. And it turned out to be a pretty big global company. By the time I sold it in 2022, I had over 800 retired and active law enforcement officers work for me around the country and in Europe. So I have 5 grown children. My wife's a Supreme Court justice. I live in Long Island. I have 5 grandchildren. And, I've always liked to give back, and I've always been involved. I've been on many boards over the years. I think it's time we start getting back to common sense.
Yeah.
And we lack that, not just in this state, but in this country. So I think that's a big deal, and I think I bring something to the table, especially not just the law enforcement, but my business experience. I think that's really important, being able to deal with clients and talking about best practices and being able to put sides together. And I think we don't do that enough anymore.
No, and with your background in law enforcement, at a time when public safety is really issue number one for voters, it's got to be great to have that experience so you can tell people what we need to do in this state, because people are terrified on the streets anymore.
And it's perception just as much as New York City, and I'm a city kid.
Right.
I grew up in Queens, live in Long Island. But they say, oh, crime is down, crime is down. But it's when you go on a subway, you're scared.
Yeah.
When you walk down a street in Rochester, and I'm not pinpointing Rochester, but any street in any big city, it's scary sometimes at night, and people are concerned.
And they have a right to be. That seems to be the common trend, right? And there's no such thing as inflation right now, and then we go to the grocery store, right, and we see the bills. Same with public safety. No, it's safe out there, and then you're terrified, as you said, to go on the subway or walk at night.
That's right.
In your neighborhood.
That's right. And you talk about inflation. I mean, I remember going to the grocery store as a child. They used to crack open they used to have these styrofoam eggs, right?
Yeah.
And you probably don't remember this.
No,
I'm
no.
a little older than you, but you crack it in half and you'd buy 6 eggs. So I would always, one egg would break all the time. I was terrified now. Would I put that egg back? Would I bring that home to my mom to crack one and get yelled at?
Right.
But now I go into stores and I see people saying, can I buy 2 eggs?
Yeah.
And you buy a half gallon of milk with $6.29 I paid the other day.
It's crazy.
Just bought gas here.
Yeah.
Now I'm a city guy. I think I pay $5 in the city.
Yeah.
I expected to pay like $2.50 here. I think I paid $4.50 or something to get gas.
It's crazy.
It's unbelievable, and it's not getting better.
No.
It isn't getting better.
Now, when you mentioned you were at the fair and you've got a lot of traveling, we're going to talk about your travel, but when you're talking to voters and you said everybody was so friendly yesterday, what are their major concerns? What are they telling you that they want you to focus on if you're our senator?
Well, up here, when you travel the state, and this is such a big state, 62 counties.
Yeah.
I'm having such a great time trying to hit every one 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Well, farming is a big deal as we get up to this area, right? And agriculture and loss of jobs. I mean, I was in Endicott a few months ago, and you go where IBM was, and the streets are deserted, and they're trying to rebuild Main Street. It was so cool last night. I kind of walked down Market Street, and I ate at Mooney's,
yes.
I had this big thing of macaroni and cheese.
That's what they're known for, yeah.
Yeah, but walking the streets were pretty cool. This is what an American town looks like.
Yes.
I grew up in the city, and it's a little bit different, right?
Sure.
But people are concerned. They're worried about their jobs. We all want better for our children.
Yes.
And you want your children to do better. But I find, as I talk to people, they're just not just concerned about the child being able to buy a house and being able to pay those mortgages. But if they have a job, can they get promoted from within?
Right.
Will they find a job that they stay here with? And people are concerned about that.
Yeah.
If we don't do something to bring industry back to this state and to give incentives to companies and businesses to want to come here, we're going to have a bigger problem than we have now. It's not getting better.
No.
It's not getting better here.
No. And I would encourage anybody to send in, you see the number on the bottom of your screen, send in any questions for our guest. And you mentioned that staying here, young people staying here, isn't that one of the biggest concerns in New York is a mass exodus? My goodness, the numbers every year are worse and worse.
It's crazy. And they're going to red states. They're going to Florida. They're going to North Carolina.
Exactly.
So you know what happens is, so your children go away to college, and they go to North Carolina, and they like it. So they decide, hey, I can get a job down here. It's cheaper to buy a house. The cost of living is much better. I'm going to move here. Now they have children. So now your grandchildren are here. So now you're retired on a fixed income, and your taxes are going up, your school costs are going up. We're bringing illegal migrants in you're paying for. And you say at some point, why do I want to be here anymore? Why don't I go and follow my kids?
Yes, it's so troubling. So let's talk more about your campaign specifically. You mentioned you traveled a lot, and we were talking off the air. We got a mutual friend, Mr. Joe Sempolinski, former congressman.
What a great chair. What a great, he's been so good to me. Joe has been great. He's running for assembly, I believe, right? Yeah. So he's just been terrific. And all the chairs, all the Republican and conservative chairs throughout the state.
Sarah Lanton, who we were talking to last
night.
night.
Sarah was great last night. I was at the fair with her yesterday. Such a nice person. She knows everyone, and
she does.
Everybody likes her, and everybody wants to stop and talk to her. So it was great.
Yeah.
But I'm learning, even people I meet who aren't in the same mind thought as we are, right? Who aren't conservative and aren't Republicans. But these are American issues, even though the issues are out there and they're everyone's issues. Yes. And as somebody will say, well, you're endorsed by Trump. Well, I don't even want to talk to you. And I'll say, well, slow down a minute. Let's have a conversation. All right, I might not like everything President Trump does, but he's done some great things and has some great policies. Let's talk about what he's done. Let's talk about where you were 3.5 years ago and where you want to be in the next 4 years. And then let's talk about me and my opponent. Let's look at the differences there, right? Yeah. So as being this old cop, Frank, I say if you put my opponent in a lineup, you can't even pick her out.
No, it's true.
And you know what? Everybody throughout the state says, who are you running against? That guy, Chuck? What's his name?
Yeah.
And I'll say, no, the other senator.
No, the other one.
Who is the other senator?
Yeah.
So
it's true.
People are talking about that. And my point is, listen, look at the differences between the two of us. I care. It's important to me to be in this state and walk around and talk to people. When was the last time you spoke with her? When was the last time she stopped at your coffee shop?
Yeah.
Or stopped into your drugstore? Or stopped on your show?
Yeah.
But, I mean, these are important things. Yeah. We'll probably see her around a little more now. They're closed for a month, right?
Yeah, right.
But it's important as your senator. I want to be the senator for everybody.
Right.
And I want to be able to talk to everybody and listen to everybody.
Here's a comment from a viewer. I might have missed it, but is he a Republican, being that he's from New York City?
Yes, certainly a Republican. Well, we don't have Republicans in New York City. Well, I'm actually now living in Nassau, and that's a red county.
There you go.
With a big red wave in Long Island the last couple of years. But certainly am a conservative Republican.
No, I know. We're just teasing. But so you mentioned that about Gillibrand being in the lineup. What has she done? What record can she really run on?
Well, that's the issues right there. Nobody really can. I think she's done some stuff for 9/11, which we'll applaud her for.
Yeah, of course.
That's a big deal. We'll applaud her for that. She's done some stuff for women's rights. We should applaud her there. But we need to hold our elected officials accountable.
Yes.
Not just for what they do, but what they're not doing. And that's important. Something just came out about Kamala Harris, and she's the #1 far left senator when she was a senator.
Yeah.
Then was Bernie Sanders, and third on that list was Kirsten Gillibrand. Yeah. So we need to get back to basics, at least get back to the middle and start moving in the right direction. These things aren't about right and left, they're about right and wrong, right? These are the issues for everybody, and we don't do that anymore. Again, it goes back to common sense, Frank.
Right. And it was interesting. I remember when she was first running, and everybody said, well, I think the one silver lining is she's going to be good on gun rights. Remember when they said that? Because when she needed to get elected in her conservative district, she was a little more pro-gun. Now, not so much.
Well, when she became a congresswoman, she was very much that way, right? And then when Patterson appointed her to take Clinton's place, slowly but surely has she shifted over the last 15 years from being a moderate person to a far-left person. And it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable in this state.
No.
We need two-party politics
yes,
here.
Please.
We don't need to be ruled by one party. We need equal rights here in this state, and we need a strong Republican leader. And I think when President Trump gets elected, we're going to see that. And I'm hoping that I'm right under Trump's name is Sapraicone. So I'm hoping that will come down. I'm hoping will help the rest of the down ticket. We have to maintain these seats in the House. That's a big deal. And New York is very much responsible. California tries to say they had something to do with it. They had nothing to do with it. We need to stay strong in New York. Keep the House. My seat will pick up the Senate, and so we'll have the presidency, the Senate, and the House, and that's how we can start governing again.
Yes, and you're right about the House. Lee Zeldin and the hard work he did as governor and campaigning, trying to be governor.
What a great foundation, Lee said. Right? He fell a little bit short, and he fell a little short in the city. And he's a Long Island guy. I'm a city kid. If I can't get that 37% of the city, then I've failed. So I'm going to work hard. Those are the streets I protected for 20 years. We want to get the boroughs. We need them.
And you had mentioned earlier what Gillibrand had done with 9/11, but did you see that yesterday with that plea deal with the 9/11 mastermind? What is this administration doing at this point?
How do you talk to those parents? How do you talk to the people, the spouses, the families that lost their loved ones in that? It's what it is. We show weakness. And that's why we have the Israel attack on October 7th. That's why we have Ukraine. That's why we have to concern ourselves with what China's going to do in Taiwan. We need to start having stronger leadership. And that's what we'll get when Trump gets back in office. And that's what we need here in the United States, everywhere, in each office, in each position, state, local positions, federal positions. We need to start showing leadership again.
Well, and that's what I like what J.D. Vance had to say, that we don't need a president that negotiates with terrorists, but kills terrorists.
He's an Army guy. He understands. He's a military person, and that's what you need to do. We need to not to be tolerant of them. We need to make them accountable for what they do. And I think what an important thing to me is, of course, my law enforcement experience is very important to me, but I think also my business experience. So we're done with a 50-year politician. We're done with somebody who's been in politics their whole lives. Do they know what it is to make a payroll? Did they know what it is not to lay somebody off? Did they know what it is to tell your family, hey, I've got to pay my employees this week, so we're going to cut back a little bit, right? Maybe we're going to have a little more chicken this week or something like that. So I don't think they understand that. They've never had to confront those situations or make decisions that are life-changing. Even though they think they make life-changing decisions for the state of this country, what about when you have to bring it down to a business and make those decisions? That's hard.
We're going to talk more about your business experience here in just a second, but we got to take our first break. Stay with us. Get your questions in. You see the number on the bottom of the screen. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking in the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of the program. Up a little louder. And welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hakem. We are being joined in the studio by candidate for United States Senate, Mike Sapraicone. Mike, thanks so much for being on the program this morning. Again, we got a couple comments from viewers. First off, had a nice time at the fair, so this isn't related to you. Had a nice time at the fair. It's got everything. One of the best fairs I've been to, going back on Demo Derby Day. There you go. Another comment. He has my vote because he seems to be in touch with the reality of the present state of affairs here in the United States.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Okay, now we were talking about your business experience. Why, as a businessman, not as a candidate, why would a business stay here or move here?
Very difficult to stay here, and it's always been a concern of mine. And we did business in a lot of different states, and we had a company in California, more difficult than New York, and New York is pretty difficult. But we don't give people incentives to have a business here. Look what happened in the city with Amazon. With AOC and that whole group, and our state senator here from down there, and what a missed opportunity.
I know.
What a missed opportunity. Why don't we take advantage of these things? And it seems like that's what we're doing, especially in this state. We're not taking advantage of situations. What are we doing to keep companies here? We're not doing anything to keep them, and we're not doing anything to bring them in. So I had my business for 33 years. I employed over 800 people, all law enforcement, active and retired. It was time for me to retire and move on to my third career. But I think it's difficult to conduct business. It's difficult to bring in business, to keep clients. But I think it's something we can change. Listen, there's cycles in everything you do, right? And it's about timing. And I think the timing is right for a change in New York.
I agree.
And we talked about Lee Zeldin, how he set a great foundation. He's very close to being the governor. And people don't understand that you need to come out on November 5th and vote. That's how you change things. We can't stay home and moan and groan if we don't come out and vote. And it's something, and I'm going to kind of spin off a little bit, but I think as Republicans, and I talk about this all the time, we tend to fight among ourselves. The other party doesn't tend to do that. They tend to do it behind closed doors and rally around.
That's what was so shocking about Biden.
So shocking.
We've never seen that before. Democrats turning on a Democrat.
Right. And democracy. We've just crowned her queen or whatever we want to do. But besides that, we need to do things better. To me, on Tuesday morning of Election Day, you get up, you get a bagel, you go and you vote, and then the kids are off from school and you take them to the park or the playground to play. No more. We don't live that way anymore. Right. We need to keep up with the pace. We need to do early voting to make sure we get out there and get voting 10 days ahead or whatever the time span is and get that done because, as Republicans, we do things well. We do boots on the ground really well.
Yeah, we do.
And we had a special election in February in Nassau County, and it snowed that day.
Yes.
And that hurt. It hurt. And in November, it snows once, especially up here, I guess, right?
Yes, okay? It does, yes.
So we need to do early voting, get those early ballots out. We need to do absentee ballots. I mean, how many children do we send away to college and they don't do an absentee ballot because they think it's not important? And we need to do that. We need to get young people registered. We need to get young people to understand that their vote counts. And I'm going to be speaking at a scope function in September. And it's so important, our Second Amendment rights. But and again, I'm not going to knock the NRA, but when we look at, they have over 5 million people in this state alone who are NRA members. Only 1.5 million voted last year because they don't feel their vote is important or counts. I want to show them that their vote counts, that their vote's important. We understand what rights our Second Amendment is and how important that is to us as Americans and New Yorkers. And that's important. And we need that support. But we need everybody to get out there and vote and start understanding these are important things.
Exactly. And I like what you said because I've heard people saying, I think Joe Sempolinski last time he was on was actually saying it. We may not like the rules and the early voting, something like that, but they're the rules.
That's it.
And as Republicans, we have to adapt and start playing by the same rules that Democrats are playing by because you're exactly right. With that snow, think of how many people that could not make it out.
That's right, because you planned on then schools got closed, so you didn't take your kids to school.
Or you get sick or whatever.
So many different things. Something comes up. Life comes up, and it's important.
I know this is the first year, because we all like it. I think Republicans are so proud to vote, right? So you look forward to voting day and you go in. This is the first year I'm going to try to early vote, just to make the point that we have to start doing that.
Well, I've done it, and they kind of make it so convenient. My wife and I have done it last year we did it for the first time. And there's pretty much a million places you can go to and vote. It's not like you got to go to the local place. You can go to the store shopping, and you have like 10 polling places, and you go there. And that's something else we're going to do better this year as Republicans, election integrity. So President Trump this is a tremendous concern, in New York and in every state. But we need to do better. We're going to make sure we have representatives at every polling spot. And we've brought a ton of lawyers in. The president is working so hard, putting a team together. And we want to make sure that everything is done correctly.
Before we go, I got another comment. I got to take another break, but I got another comment from a viewer. I also think that he will not be wishy-washy, meaning you, and does not say that what any particular audience wants to hear in a good way.
Listen, I want to speak my mind. I want to listen to what your ideas are.
Yeah.
But I want to have a conversation back and forth.
Exactly.
I want to learn from you.
Yes. And you were mentioning earlier about winning the state back over because it is single-party rule, right? And it's destroying the state.
Right.
But then you saw that Trump rally in the Bronx.
I was there.
Oh, were you?
I was there.
That's amazing, the numbers.
It was great. Yeah. Really cool.
And when people are starting to talk, and I mean, I'm a little jaded from doing this for so long, and I don't know if New York will ever go red, but it's encouraging to see those kind of numbers.
Very encouraging. Yeah. And of course the media tried to play it down as well. It wasn't as many people as they thought. Yeah. There were people they wouldn't let in because they shut the park down and wouldn't let people. It was a big pep rally. Yeah. And when you get back, let's talk a little bit about the convention if you have time.
Yeah,
because that was a great pep rally.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselstein studio here on historic Market Street in Corning. Right before we went to break, you were saying that you went to the convention. How much fun was that? That seemed like an amazing convention to me.
So I've never been to a convention before.
Oh, really?
This was my first convention. And, I haven't been a political guy.
That's
I'm
true.
just a business guy and a cop guy and a family guy. So now, since February, since I got the nomination here up in Broome County in Binghamton, it's been thing after thing after thing after thing, meeting people I never would imagine I'd be sitting with, talking to guys like you, and being on different radios and TV shows. But so here I am in the front row, and the second row was my worst seat, and we're right off to the right of the stage in Milwaukee. What an experience! It was a big pep rally. It was a big production. It was amazing. Yeah. It was amazing. And then when they let the balloons go at the end of Thursday night, you couldn't even. There were so many balloons you couldn't get out of the aisles without stepping on people and falling down. And but I think everybody put together what we need to do, and we need to unify as a party. Right. I think that's the President Trump's point, and I think he did that, and he made that point. We had some great speakers. We were so lucky here. We had Lee Zeldin spoke. Yeah. We had Elise Stefanik, who has endorsed me. Elise has endorsed me, along with President Trump, who's endorsed me 3 times. Okay. So
waiting for that
fourth. And you never know when that's going to come. You sit down somewhere, and all of a sudden, there it is. Congratulations, Mike. Yeah. So always a great honor. But we were going around getting endorsements from most of the sheriffs here, everybody we meet in the law enforcement community, which I would hope would be the case. But it was so exciting. It was so exciting to see people there and to be there and be part of that.
You could feel the excitement even through TV. You know, obviously I was watching it from TV. And sometimes, let's face it, in the past, some of the conventions can be kind of boring. Every speech on there was, I think, a home run.
And his 2 sons, Eric and Donald, did great speeches. Yep. And his granddaughter, I thought that was so cool.
She was a star,
She was good. Yeah. She was good.
She did a great job.
It was kind of anticlimactic by the time the president got there, right? So, but that is what it is. But it was such a great, and he was so inspirational in wanting to, talking about what happened to him only a few days earlier, which is an amazing thing in itself. Thank God he's alive, and thank God for this country. That's the last thing we needed, was to see anybody. These political things are so ridiculous. We have to learn to work together. I mean, when I grew up, no one ever said to me, "What party are you from?"
Right.
We'd have a conversation and you talk and you might disagree. Good friend of mine, Senator Alphonse D'Amato, our last Republican senator, is in office. His office is next door to my office in Long Island, and I can hear him yelling through the walls all the time still. But he would tell me stories, and I had a radio show I told you before. I was called Street Smart with Mike Sapraicone. But when Alphonse D'Amato came on, it was the Alphonse D'Amato show with guest Mike Sapraicone, because he talked more than me. But he would tell stories about being on the floor with Ted Kennedy or somebody else, and debating and arguing on the floor and having conversations, and then going and having a cigar and a drink later and talking about the world, the way it is, and what they can do to make it better. We don't see that anymore.
We don't have that. No.
I tell somebody I'm the Republican conservative candidate, they walk away from me. But what I'm finding, and
you're lucky if they walk away from you.
Well, what I found yesterday at the fair, I say, wait a minute, let's have a discussion. Everybody has had a discussion with me, and great. I say, you might not agree with this or that, but look where you were 4 years ago, look where you are today, and look where my opponent is. Right. Look at the 2 of us, research us, and see what you think is a better choice. And I've gotten people to say, "Okay, I'll look at you. I'll listen to you." Yeah.
Well, and going back to the convention, if you look at some of the speeches, that's what people were saying. I was told that Trump was a racist, or that Trump was a horrible person, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And I did the research, and I actually looked into it. Next thing you know, none of that's true. It's the media lying to you, essentially.
That's right. Well, look at our next vice president, right?
Yeah.
So he wasn't a supporter, and you have to get to know people. You have to get to understand. You're not always going to agree with everybody.
No.
And if you agree with everybody, there's probably something wrong with you.
Yeah, it's a boring life.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So I think it's important to research people, understand people, and get to know people. I mean, as a cop, sometimes I'm a first impression type of guy. Yeah. Doesn't always work.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Before we go, we do have another break, but I have a comment from a viewer. I'm glad Mike is on our side. See? You got some fans out there. But what I wanted to mention just before we go to break, because you had talked about the assassination attempt. Isn't it kind of interesting that, obviously, a horrible thing that happened, and now the media is quiet? When's the last time we've heard anything really about it? And we've heard of censorship of even the photo of that historic, iconic photo of the president pumping his fist and saying fight. So I don't know how to exactly explain this, but they seem to be burying something that the whole world should know. This is a picture of us. Yes, and
this is history.
This is how divided we've become. So doesn't burying that photo just divide us even more?
It does. And you bring up a bigger subject, because they want to take history away.
Yes.
They want to cancel it. and it's important. We don't teach our children about World War I, World War II, the Holocaust. They don't know about this. They get about 15 minutes of that discipline in school. What's going to happen in 20 years? Will this never happen? What's Trump? Who is he? Right?
Right.
You know, but it doesn't have to be Trump. It could be Biden. It could be Kennedy. It could be anybody.
Yeah.
Why are we taking away what our history is? That's what's built us. That's what our foundation is, based on our history. You shouldn't take it away. We should be able to be happy about our history.
And they're taking away or rewriting it.
Right, well, they're rewriting it. Of course they are. They're to their benefit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's take another short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and this is the Steuben Senior Services Fund section of our program. Mike, thanks again for being on the program. It's so nice to have you just stop in after grabbing a cup of coffee. And
great to be here.
we got
Frank.
so many comments coming in. I realize we have a two-party system in this country, but why is it after the election the candidates, winners, retain their specific party logic? After the candidates win their particular office, aren't they working for all the people, not just Republicans or Democrats?
Well, what I'm learning is, and what I've seen is my experience as just a regular voter.
Yeah.
Once they win, they don't care anymore. Their job is now to win again.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I feel bad for Congress people and assemblymen and state senators, 2-year terms. Yeah. When do you govern?
Yeah.
Right? You get elected. And in Congress, you have to start raising money the next day to be ready for the next election. So at least with Senate, I have 6 years, and I can govern, and I look forward to that. But I think what we lack is those representatives understanding that they're the representatives of everybody, not the Democrats, not the Republicans, not the conservatives, the state of New York, the country. And that's important, and we lose focus because we're so worried about our next election that we don't, because we're worried about our jobs. Yeah. So what I'm really happy about with me, I've had my jobs.
Yeah.
I've been a cop. I've been a detective. I've had a business. I'm retired from both of those. My dedication now is to the people of the state of New York and to this country. I look forward to that. And I'm a big term limit guy. I think that's important. I've signed this when I had a little position where I was thinking of running for the Santos seat back in Long Island. Yeah. I wasn't the choice of the party, and that worked out well for me. Yeah. The party, we lost that election to a Democrat, but we'll gain that seat back hopefully this year. But I think as a congressman, 6 years, 6 terms, 12 years is more than enough.
Yes.
I think as a senator, 2 terms. I mean, that'll make me 80, okay? But I'm looking forward to that.
Then you run for president.
Then I'm perfect. Then I can go right in there and step right in. But I think it's important that politicians and elected officials learn that they represent everybody, and we need to do that and get back to that.
Another comment from a viewer: I pray the government will fill up with supermen so the country can get back for peace, justice, and the American way. That's for sure.
Well, I think just, we're seeing in Western New York, we're seeing a lot of law enforcement people put up for positions, running for Congress, running for state senate, running for assembly. I think that's a great big deal.
Me too.
I think it's people, we understand how to think on our feet and how to make things happen. And I think it's very important.
And that's why I'd recommend people go to your website, because you have on your website a petition to keep cop killers. It's amazing we have to say this. Keep cop killers in prison.
Well, we had a press release, I guess, a presser they call it. I'm learning up in Albany about a month ago or so. I thought that we even have to have that, and like you said, to discuss this. So in the last 7 years between the Cuomo and Hochul administration, their parole commissioners appointed by them have released 41, up until last week, now 42 cop killers.
That's
42 murderers of police officer and law enforcement. Somebody said to me, you mean in the country? No, in the state of New York,
just in New York.
42 cop killers released in the last 7 years, with about 22 still in prison. But I speak to these widows and these families, and every time they have to go in front of that parole board, they're serving life sentences. But we've decided in the state of New York that if you're 55 years old and you've served 30 years, maybe you deserve a break, another chance. What about the families who lost their loved ones? What about those law enforcement families? Senator Cotton from Arkansas, and I think Representative Garcia from California, are putting together a federal amendment, a federal law, which I support completely, that any law enforcement officer killed in the line of duty in this country will be a federal offense. And if that state has the death penalty, they would be put to death. And I support that.
Yeah.
I think we have to have zero tolerance. The border, we need zero tolerance. with killing of law enforcement officers. We need zero tolerance. And that goes into this bail reform. What's going on in New York
What a joke.
is just absurd. And Hochul will tell you how she's trying to fix it. And listen, my wife's a judge, and we've taken discretion away from the judges, okay? When they came up with the bail reform, how many sheriffs were up there discussing with them? How many DAs were up there? How many police commissioners? How many chiefs of police? They didn't ask anybody their opinion because they decided. They decided, the majority decided, the far left decided, this is what we need. And I'm not against bail reform. Listen, there's always, you should have some kind of reform. We should be fair and think about what we do, but we should be looking at individual situations. There can't be a
one size fits all.
That's right. And it can't happen, and we're doing that. And look at the cops beat up in Times Square. So, I grew up in Queens, and in Casino Park, there was a rape of a 13-year-old a month or two ago. And that was a Venezuelan person who came in. Venezuela has closed their prisons, okay, because now everybody's up here in New York and the United States.
Trump's been talking about it.
And they're just, and these guys are running around on these bikes, and they're
terrorizing people.
And it's ridiculous. It's not safe to go anywhere. We're paying for this. Hochul is sending $2.4 billion of money from upstate down to Eric Adams in New York City to pay for the illegal immigrants, okay? I think it's somewhere between $350 and $500 a day on a credit card. I was at an event last Sunday, and I spoke to an illegal immigrant who's been here 20 years, okay? Hardworking, pays his taxes, has his business, has brought his family here. And he is upset that he has to work hard, and nobody hands him a credit card every week with $350 or $500 on it. And it's not fair. And he's upset by this. And why wouldn't he be upset? I mean, we're all somewhere or another immigrants, right? Our grandparents, our great-grandparents. But they came here the right way. They worked hard. That's the American way. There's no other, we don't listen to this dream, it's the American dream. We have an American dream, and I'm the American dream. Just a kid from Queens. I used to dig ditches as a kid, became a cop, started a business. Now I'm running for the United States Senate. I mean, you can't do that anyplace else. So it's a great honor and great to do that. But we need to start changing things and getting back to common sense. Parole is a big deal. Bail reform is a big deal. Law and order is a big deal.
Well, and you mentioned Hochul saying that she's trying on bail reform, which is a joke. You're never going to hear me say I agree with our former governor, Andrew Cuomo, but he did say, well, she's not a bystander anymore, right? She's been there 3 years. If she wants to change something, you can't keep blaming it on Cuomo.
That's right.
That's right. And I said,
until he gets elected again somewhere else.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know. That's a whole other story. I mean,
mayor? You think?
Who maybe.
I don't need to go down that rabbit hole.
No,
I'm
but
sorry.
she stood up at a police memorial in Albany a couple months ago, and she had her sunglasses on, and she stood there and she said, I believe in the police, how important the police are. She doesn't believe in the police. She couldn't care less about the police. And all these politicians, look at what Harris has said about the funding the police. Why hire more
she
police?
raised money?
That's
for
right.
For the rioters.
That's right. That's right. Let's start thinking about what we're doing. Let's not just be like, and you know what I think, and going back to one of your questions before, I think elected representatives start to just lean right away because they want to make sure they keep to that base and keep to that positioning so that they get elected again. I'm not worried about getting elected again. I want to get elected now. Then I want you to come back in 6 years and say, I want this psycho again. Okay? He did a really good job. Exactly. He actually talked to me, and he did something I asked, or tried to do what I asked him to. I think that's important.
And we were talking about illegal immigration. You even have Greg Abbott's endorsement.
I did. I met the governor. He was great. I'm getting a lot of endorsements. I met the governor. He's a great guy. We're going to try to get down to the border with him at some point. He's busy. I'm busy. But, we talk about, we talk about the southern border constantly. I'm up in Clinton County and speaking to a young lady up there who tells me about her parents moving from Brooklyn many, many years ago to see the stars at night. That's why they moved to Clinton County. I grew up in Queens. If I stood on the apartment house roof where I grew up, I could see the stars once in a while, okay? But now all they see are helicopter lights, okay, of the illegal immigrants coming across the Canadian. We have the largest border with Canada in the state, in the country. We've had a 250% increase in illegal immigrants coming over that border in the last year. It's non, and the Channel 5 actually is Fox News in the City is doing a story on the gas stations up in Clinton County. I think is it Pittsburgh? I apologize for not knowing the city, but up there where the yellow cabs are coming from Manhattan and being paid to come up there and pick up illegal immigrants to bring them down to Manhattan.
Wow. And I know our Congressman Nick Langworthy's been speaking out on that.
Nick is great.
Yeah, he's been doing a great job.
Nick is just, he was a great leader as the chairman of the party.
I know.
And he's going to be, I was with him at the convention sitting next to him. He's just a great person. Yeah. He cares about this state and this country and all of our representatives. They're all Republican representatives.
Yeah, they do a great job. And I was kind of, a little bit of me wanted Elise Stefanik to be the VP. I'm happy with Vance, but I'm just saying that it would have been kind of neat.
I think she's a very smart young lady. Mm-hmm. Powerful politician. I think she did a great job. Her son was hysterical on the floor holding up a Trump sign. Okay. I think Elise has more to do. I think we're happy that she's where she is.
And she's doing a great job.
She's doing a great job. I think same with Lee Zeldin. I think when Trump comes in November, I think we'll see some changes and maybe we'll see some New York people be part of that administration somewhere along the line. And but two good people. It's a shame. I hope we don't have to lose Elise.
I know.
But she needs to move on and do what she needs to do, not just for the state, but for this country.
Absolutely.
So I think that would be great.
All right, we got to take another short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Well, we're just about wrapping up. And by the way, not only thank you for coming in this morning, thank you for giving us so much time.
Oh, thank you. This is great.
This is wonderful. Isn't it fun?
Live
TV?
Anytime I can sit and talk to people, I love it. I talk too much people. My kids say I talk too much.
Is that right? We got a couple comments here. Mike needs to be a regular. Hope he comes back again for another interview.
I'd love to come back. Anytime I'm in Corning, I'll be here. Not even a thought.
You gunning for my job?
No. But I love to be part of your show.
Another comment. If everybody knows what's going on with this illegal immigration thing and the open porous borders that we all know about, why are we so powerless to stop it? It seems like a terrible government-sanctioned invasion.
Well, I think what the left is doing here is they're looking to have all these people come in and vote.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you go to a vote. You go to vote.
Yeah.
And you don't show any identification whatsoever.
I know.
I bought a birthday cake. It was my wife's birthday, and the cake was over $100.
Yeah.
We had a big party, so over $100. You had to show your driver's license to match your credit card in order to pay for the cake.
For a birthday cake.
I'm saying, to vote, I could just kind of show up and say, hey, I'm Mike Sapraicone. How are you?
Yeah.
Okay, here you go.
Scribble a
Sign
name
here.
and
That's it. And they don't even check the signatures, right?
No.
But I think that's part of it. This is all political. Yeah. I think with congestion pricing, and that doesn't really relate to you guys, but I think that's a big part of this. Will kill congestion pricing. I think it
will affect us, so in the long term, when you think about it. Increase costs.
It will increase costs, and what we're seeing is, though, and I'm an old transit cop from the 1980s before I went to the NYPD, we lose over $660,000 a day in illegal turnstile jumpers.
Oh, yeah.
So why don't we start putting more law enforcement? Why don't we start cracking down on that? Back in the Bratton days and the Giuliani days, we had quality of life.
Yeah.
We started with quality of life, and that's how we control crime. That's how we got the city back in the 90s.
Yes.
We need to do that everywhere, talk about quality of life and start at a foundation. But just back to the illegal immigrants, there was people saying, well, the Republicans had an opportunity to close the border. It was all mixed in with the aid to Ukraine, the aid to Israel, and it was then mixed in with the border. Listen, that was 5,000 people a day they wanted to bring into this country. That was their idea of fixing it.
Right.
Zero tolerance is the idea of fixing it. We can't come up with a plan B because guess what? This administration doesn't have a plan A.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's the border problem, and that's what we have to solve. We have to put a plan together and have zero tolerance, put more judges on, put more border patrol on, and stop this asylum because of this persecution from this or that. Come on, stop it.
Yep.
It's just a ploy to get in here. There's no checking that. Look at the fentanyl that's coming to this country. Not just from Mexico, from China, from everywhere. That's the biggest cause of death between males between the ages of 18 and 45. We need to stop it. Again, zero tolerance. And we have to get back to that.
I agree. Now, I know you've been traveling around the great state a lot, and I know you've got another stop in the future here, so you got to get going. But before we go, everybody's asking, how can we help your campaign?
Well, listen, we're about $8.5 million down from what my opponent has, but we're getting there, and we'll keep going. It's hard. It's hard to ask for money.
Yeah.
I'm always asking for money and meeting people, but I'm asking for your advice. I'm asking for your support, just as important. And to get my voice out and my agenda, which is your agenda.
Right.
I want people to understand that. But it's Mike Sapraicone for Senate.com. You can go to my website. You can see my parole petition there. You can see about fundraising. You can see about events we're going to have. You can see where I've been traveling throughout this great state, 62 counties. Never realized it was so big. And what a great time to visit in July and August. I'm looking forward to September. I'm not looking forward to when the snow starts coming in November and December.
Yeah.
But by that time, I'll be a senator and we'll come back again.
They don't get much snow in Washington. So
Well, they don't. But Frank, thank you so much.
Thanks for
This
doing
was
this.
great being here.
Yeah, safe travels. Anything we can do to help, and like you said, anytime you're in the area, and if you're on the road, you just want to do a quick call or Zoom, we'll do that too.
Well, you have my number, and I
Yep.
have yours,
Yep.
and I'd love to do that. Anytime you're a little bored and you want to spice up things a little bit, give me a ring. I love to
That's
chat
what it
with
sounds like
you.
everybody wants. All right, we've been talking to our next senator of New York State. Mike, thanks so much for being on the show. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for being here.
All right, we'll be right back. And we are back. See, this is why you need to tune in starting right at 6 a.m. You never know what to expect here on Frankly Speaking. We want to thank Mike Sapraicone for being on the program, running for the United States Senate. What a treat. He was at the Chemung County Fair yesterday. I got a call and said, "You want him on the program?" And I said, "Absolutely." And then, kind enough to give us a full hour. He gave me some signs and some things like that. So if you're around and I'm around, you see me in the window, I'd be happy to give you a sign. Or I didn't look at all the other swag I got. A couple comments here. It's like we're on a runaway train waiting for the crash. Yes, in reference to illegal immigration. Also, comment here. So illegals can vote. Now, not legally, they can't vote. They can, as he was saying, you need voter ID. So what they're at, you don't need voter ID. What we're saying is it can be illegal votes. Sorry, I got distracted because he was taking a photo. So they can't vote legally, but that doesn't stop many from voting, is what I'm trying to say, to be a little more crystal clear. So though it's not legal, neither is crossing the border illegally. So you can see where the next jump may be to throw their vote. Because all it takes is, like he said, you've experienced it too. I don't have to show my ID. Someone goes in and says Frank Acom, scribble it down, and votes for whoever. So that's the thought there. Okay, I didn't even have a chance to kind of do a little housekeeping here. We have another interview coming up in the next hour. We're going to be talking with Griffin Bates, the Steuben County historian. He's relatively new to the job. Started in January, doing a great job. We're going to talk about the Steuben County Hall of Fame inductions. We're also going to talk a little bit about what he does and what he wants to see happen at the county level. It's always important to remember our history, as Mr. Sapraicone was saying just moments ago. Remember our history. Well, what a time to have Griffin Bates on the program. I'm just looking at all the comments and all the waves coming in. It was nice to have him on the program. Oh, a couple messages that we received from yesterday, after yesterday's program. Another great show. Thank you, Frank. Thank you. This was yesterday's, so I don't know what the verdict is on today's show. Another comment. They sound like Harris is already president and calling the shots. I could not agree more. Watching this coverage, and we're going to talk a lot about it in the next hour a lot. Well, it's not just the media making it sound. Hold on. It's not just the media making it sound like she's already president. Did you see she called herself president yesterday? Just like Biden used to call her president. She accidentally calls herself the president during Sheila Jackson Lee's eulogy, and that caused the crowd to go wild. She said, which is a U.S. senator I was proud to co-sponsor, and then as vice president. It was my honor with the president, and the crowd went crazy. Isn't also, I don't know, at a eulogy, I don't know, does it seem weird to you? Does it fall weird on your ears to have someone, and I don't know what her whole eulogy was, but to start talking about legislation you passed, giving a kind of a stump speech. But to the viewer's point, you're absolutely right. She's already in. In their mind, she's already, well, she kind of probably is running the White House, but she is going to be president. It's all over but the shouting. That is how the media is portraying it, and we're going to talk about that in the next hour. We covered so many things. I don't know if I have a lot to talk about. It seems like we covered everything with Senate candidate Mike Sapraicone. But we are going to talk a little bit about international stories. We might jump right into, well, I'll have a couple of quick international stories, and then we'll probably jump right into the campaigns. Trump, the anger at J.D. Vance. So as we mentioned yesterday, there's two media stories out there. J.D. Vance is weird. J.D. Vance and Trump are horrible. They're horrible. And Kamala Harris is essentially the second coming. Never seen a better candidate. Never been anybody that will be so presidential. Now, does that luster wear out? When will she finally, because this is day 12, without any type of press conference, without any type of presser, any media interviews, will they start, and I don't think the media will, but will people start questioning her on substance? Actually asking the tough questions, not just stump speeches done by teleprompter. I have a piece here that we're going to get to. Maybe we'll start the program, or the second hour, with it, which is saying she's all foam, no beer, the old saying, where there's no substance, but right now she's giving speeches. She's got the pop culture aspect to it, where she's got rappers introducing her, and she's got celebrities portraying her on SNL, and etc. So she's got those things. But obviously she can't run on her record. So she's got to just do fluff speeches. And unfortunately, and I know it's frustrating to watch, the media will allow her to do that. And it's not a typical campaign. So you don't have, as Trump has complained, and rightfully so, he's been running against Biden for so long, and then the switch, not even midstream, towards the end, is not fair, number one, to the Democrat voter, not fair to the country, and not fair to Trump and the Republicans either. But you've got 4 months. Can the media hold out for 4 months on asking her any questions, criticizing her at all? Yes. Can she just continue to give these type of stump speeches off the teleprompter for 4 months? I believe so. So we'll talk about all that and much more. What did you think of our special guest, Mike Sapraicone? You can find out more at MikeSapraiconeforsenate.com. MikeSapraiconeforsenate.com. I should have, do I have it here? We talked about Trump's endorsement, but this is what he said of Mr. Sapraicone. Mike has my complete and total endorsement. I look forward to working with him to take New York State away from the people who have destroyed it. That was the endorsement of Mike Sapraicone. Okay, we've got to take this short break. Stay with us. Hour number 1 in the books. Boy, that was easy having a guest that whole time. So that made that one easy. Now we've got an hour of you and I together with a quick Steuben Senior Services Fund interview with our good friend Griffin Bates, the Steuben County historian. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will be right back. And we are back. Hour number 2. If you missed us, hour number 1, we spent nearly the whole broadcast with Mike Sapraicone, candidate for United States Senate, running against Gillibrand. Look at the fancy penny. Laugh at me, can you? Says not gonna zoom in. Mike Sapraicone for Senate. That's the website. Okay, a couple comments from viewers, or one comment. Wife and I were ashamed of the Chemung County Fair last year and decided we would not go back. However, we watched your show concerning the new format and did go yesterday. We're happily surprised. It was like a real county fair again. Kudos to the new board. I've heard nothing but wonderful things. We had our news crew from Big Fox News at 10. They went on Wednesday. They said it was great. We heard Mike Sapraicone, who was there yesterday, shaking hands. That it was a big turnout, had a lot of fun. Right before the Oak Ridge Boys were about to play on their farewell tour. So, yes, I would agree with that, viewer. Kudos to the new board. Did you see that, and we're going to talk about Harris, but that Joe Biden is angry that Israel killed the Hamas leader, a terrorist, because it hurts the chances of a ceasefire? Why are so many on the left coming out and saying killing a terrorist, killing a murderer is a bad thing? Maybe it goes to give you a little thought to the mindset. Joe Biden said the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was not helpful for reaching a ceasefire in Israel's war in Gaza. So one of the masterminds, maybe this is why we're releasing 9/11 masterminds, because the fact that there would be outrage, or I shouldn't say outrage, but kind of anger at Israel for killing someone that was so instrumental on October 7th and that terrorist attack, I don't know. The weakness, as we were saying with Mike Sapraicone, the weakness that we show as Americans with that pullout of Afghanistan, that disastrous pullout. Then we've got, well, in the 9/11 masterminds getting a plea deal. By the way, did you see the Hamas leader, Ismail Haniyeh? Did you see how sources are saying how he was killed? They planted the bomb months in advance, and it was a remote bomb. Stuff like that sounds almost out of a movie. What else? We got so much to cover. Okay. By the way, Biden, it is said that he is determined to close Guantanamo Bay in the next 6 months. That's coming after the life in prison plea deal for the 9/11 terrorists. So he's trying to close Guantanamo Bay. 9/11 survivors who battled life-threatening illness rips the terrorist plea agreement, saying it was a deal with the devil. And the White House is now saying, we didn't even know about the deal. Can you imagine that? John Kirby said, this was something that was orchestrated by an independent military convening authority. The White House wasn't aware of this deal or the process leading up to it until yesterday. The president has directed his national security team, as appropriate, to reach out to individuals and leaders at the Department of Defense to discuss this matter further. I'm limited into any other thing I can say about it right now, but obviously we weren't aware of it until yesterday. The president wants the team to discuss it as appropriate with the Department of Defense. So that shows true leadership. All right. Now let's get into the campaign, shall we? Kamala Harris has not given interviews, any kind of press conference or pressers as they're called, in 12 straight days. After Hollywood elites, top Democrats, and donors reportedly forced Biden out, he quickly endorsed Harris. She subsequently received support from top Democrats and became the presumptive nominee around July 22nd and has yet to answer any real questions, give any real interviews. I think, as I said in the last hour, I think we're at a place where they just have to run out the clock. The fawning by the media can last for 4 months. The not asking real questions can last for 4 months. Her reading off a teleprompter in the Biden-esque campaign mode can last for 4 months. Because remember, this is what Biden did back in 2020, and he was successful. She can do the same thing. Now, we learned that Josh Shapiro and Mark Kelly are being vetted. They sound like the front runners for the VP stakes. But did you see Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro? He has canceled a couple of campaign events he had for his own campaign, his own coffers. He canceled a few on Tuesday, and that's when she's supposed to announce in Philadelphia who her VP will be. So if you would like to make your guess, it sounds like it'll be Josh Shapiro, which is interesting. Well, and I know we have some PA viewers because we hit into PA. What are your thoughts on the job Josh Shapiro has been doing? Also, I would ask, do you think Josh Shapiro is the pick that she will make come Tuesday? Now, I mentioned the fawning of the media. Van Jones, if you recall, Van Jones was very emotional when Joe Biden had the debate performance, and then when he resigned from his campaign, Van Jones crying at one point. He was asked about Kamala's fundraising, because Kamala has been making huge strides in fundraising, proving yet again the point that I've been making, that big money that Democrats hate so much, the big money has had the most say in a presidential election in history this go-around. They were powerful in the move to boot Biden off the campaign to run for re-election. And then they've given so much money to kind of boost Kamala Harris up and show this momentum. So he was asked about fundraising. I'm sorry. Van Jones was. And he said, Kamala mania, just energy. A big percentage of those donors are first-time donors in this cycle. Hadn't given to Biden. Had not given to anybody. People are excited about Kamala Harris, and it's showing up in the numbers. It's showing up in the polls. What a turnaround in the past 2 weeks in terms of energy, momentum, and enthusiasm for Kamala Harris. She has not got a chance to debate Trump yet, so there's things on the horizon. But where she is right now, There's sometimes the person makes the moment, and sometimes the moment makes the person. This was a moment that was crying out for some kind of breakthrough, some kind of hope. Most Americans didn't want Trump or Biden. There was this death watch for democracy after the debate. Democrats are looking at this thing like, holy, you know what? Are we going to have democracy after this election? And you got a heartbeat of hope. Kamala Harris raising her hand and saying, I'll handle this. And it's just released a flood of energy, and I think it's going to continue for a while. Well, it's only got to continue 4 months. Keep that in mind. We've got an uphill battle in the media's coverage. Oh, we got so many comments coming in. Let me take a short break because I've got enough comments coming in. I want to read that, and then we're going to reset and talk about this Kamala's all foam, no beer. And this is by Joe Concha. We'll talk about that when we come back. Thank you for joining us. If you missed it, it was nice to talk with Mike Sapraicone. He is running for United States Senate. So you can find out more at MikeSapraicone4Senate.com. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So many comments come in. I appreciate it. Let's start right off. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. I may be off topic, but this really bothers me. I find it absolutely abhorrent that the IOC, with the Olympics, allowed a genetic male to participate in the female boxing program. This is undoubtedly one of the worst decisions in Olympic history. Don't worry about it being off topic. If anybody listen to my radio show, they know I'm a huge boxing fan. I have been my whole life. So this one hits home, someone would say. I couldn't agree more. I can't remember what outlet I was on. It was more of a conservative outlet online. And they basically said being abusive to women is now an Olympic sport. Women beating is now an Olympic sport. It's one of, and I agree when you say it's one of the most horrible decisions in Olympic history. It was difficult, again, as a boxing fan, it was just difficult to watch. The woman who lost, saying it was the toughest punch she's ever experienced. So we're not going to get a ton into it, but I totally agree with you. It's not good for the Olympics. It's not good for boxing. It's across the board very, very, very troubling and not something that I think anybody enjoyed watching. Okay, other comments. How is killing a terrorist leader not a good thing for a ceasefire? Talk and release prisoners, or next in line will be killed. I know. Well, it's the mindset of try to appease the enemy. You know, this has been Biden and Obama's mindset from the beginning, which is basically try to make Iran and other enemies our friend. The ones that chant death to America, maybe they'll like us if we give them money. Maybe they'll like us if we ease sanctions. Maybe they like us if we'll just let them get away with a horrendous terrorist attack on October 7th. So, but I agree with you. It is a good thing, killing a terrorist leader. Another comment. How will Shapiro explain to Pennsylvanians that energy independence in PA will lose jobs because Harris ends up enforcing no future fracking or drilling? Well, that's the beauty of politics, isn't it? If she picks him, it's so she can erase kind of her energy policies in the past. Say, no, look, I picked someone from PA, and then if he gets it and goes in as VP, he'll just have to shrug his shoulders at the people he supposedly supports and looks out for, the people of Pennsylvania. So yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's make her look better, and he'll just have to grin and bear it as the people of his state suffer. And I would add, and I know we have some PA viewers, so you can disagree with me, but under Shapiro's watch, it's sad to see. You're becoming, in Pennsylvania, more like New York. I know the old thing here in New York was, if it's so bad, maybe we'll just go across the border, move across the border, and we can still work at our jobs and commute. Now, is it really that much better? Yeah, a little bit. But you're headed down the New York path, Pennsylvanians. All right, another comment. Strange bedfellows if the Pennsylvania governor is chosen given that PA is pro-gun. And though I have no idea Kamala's stance on guns, it is a given, as she is a liberal, that my money is she's anti-gun. She is anti-gun. I don't know what Shapiro's stance on guns are necessarily. But yes, PA is pro-gun. But that, that doesn't mean anything. I don't know if Shapiro is pro-gun, but it doesn't mean anything in the future president, if you're watching the media, the future president, Kamala Harris's plans. Another comment. If she does choose the PA governor, she is just attempting to buy the state of PA. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Okay, so Joe Concha, as we talk about this fawning over Kamala Harris, Joe Concha says, after watching the open act of the Kamala Harris presidential campaign, one thing is abundantly clear. She and her handlers think they can win the White House by pleading the fifth from now through November 5th. And that's why I bring up this article, and he put it in a much better way than I did. It just seems like they're going to try to run out the clock. They're not going to do the press. They're not going to do any hard-hitting interviews. Ever since she launched her first presidential campaign back in 2019, Kamala has not held one United States press conference. She has not done anything resembling a tough interview. Do you realize that? Not ever since she launched her first presidential campaign back in January of 2019, Kamala Harris has not held one United States press conference. She's really no different from Joe Biden. Take away her teleprompter and her script and things go sideways in a hurry. Now compare that to Donald Trump when he appeared before the National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago, the one that the media is giving him so much heat on. Could you imagine Kamala going to an unfriendly venue like that and taking tough questions? Of course not. Democrats don't do that. Trump does not back down. Trump, in an effort to expand his inroads with black voters by making himself accessible, accepted the invitation. Smart move, because he has shown he can connect with minority voters across the board, especially during the campaign cycle. Recall his visit to South Bronx, you remember that, and Harlem. His NABJ appearance was classic Trump, sparring out of the gate with the hopelessly biased ABC News correspondent Rachel Scott. Scott accused Trump of racism based on his criticism of Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. A profoundly ridiculous premise, given how critical Trump has been of prosecutor Jack Smith, who at last check is a white guy. But when Trump was actually asked relevant questions about inflation and illegal immigration by Fox News anchor Harris Faulkner, he hammered Kamala on both issues, underscoring that during his time as president, black voters were far better off. And we can go through the numbers on that, but you know the numbers. But a recent CNN poll shows that Republicans getting an eye-popping 30% of black vote compared to Harris, who gets 63%. Usually the split is around 90-10. Keep that in mind. For her part, Harris also received an invitation from NABJ, but declined to appear live and will only do so at some point by Zoom. Sound familiar? Very much Biden-esque, folks. They're running the Biden campaign for the next 4 months. The reason is simple. Harris, an actual journalist, asking germane questions about her radical policy positions simply cannot coexist. And as we've seen from the queen of word salads, she does not possess the ability to speak with anything resembling coherent arguments. She would have to answer questions on ending the fossil fuel industry. Another reason why she'll probably pick Shapiro. Abolishing ICE, ending all private health insurance, and providing free health care to illegal immigrants, for starters. Would she have to ask that? Or answer that, I don't think the media is going to ever ask her questions like that for the next 4 months. Harris would also be asked to explain her support of late-term abortion, sanctuary cities, allowing violent criminals to vote from jail, and everything from her desire to expand the Supreme Court to allowing biological men to compete against biological women in sports. And that's why that viewers comment about the boxing in the Olympics. I'm glad that Trump kind of capitalized on that, his campaign, saying this is what Harris wants. Team Harris thinks she can win not on the issues, but on thin-sliced identity groups working on her behalf. As we mentioned, she did the RuPaul drag queen show. She has the white men or white dudes for Harris Zooms. All foam and no beer, Joe Concha says. That's Kamala Harris. And at a time when Americans face a raft of serious problems, from inflation to crime, to an open border, to an increasingly unstable world, we cannot have another candidate who hides from questions and accountability while going up against a fearless candidate like Donald Trump. And when he mentions fearless, that's one reason. We talked about it with Mike I almost said Serpico. Yeah, he was a former police officer, so maybe. Mike Sapraicone, that's what we were talking about with him as well, the fearlessness of Donald Trump, and that's why they don't want that photo, that historic, iconic photo of Trump pumping his fist with the blood streaming down his face. That they're terrified of that. They don't, because you have the strength of that leader, and then you see Kamala, and again, giving speeches that are fine off of a teleprompter, very stump speech-esque. So there's nothing surprising there. But will she get any questions from the press? Will the press start to demand coverage, demand questions? I don't think so. I think they're really happy saying how great she is and how the momentum has got her, and not really push back on, hey, why haven't we got to ask her a question? Why hasn't she done a press conference since she ran for president back in 2019? All right, running just a little bit late. Boy, we're having a lot of fun on the show this morning. If you missed it, Mike Sapraicone for Senate. Go online, go to his website. We had Mike Sapraicone, who's running against Kirsten Gillibrand. I always say her first name wrong. He's running against her as a Republican. So if you missed it, we're going to try to rebroadcast some of that interview maybe later next week, because I didn't have a chance to promote it. It popped up late last night because he's traveling all around the state. He was at the Chemung County Fair yesterday, and he's on his way, I think, to Chautauqua maybe. So on the way, he stopped here. We appreciate it. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Coming up next, we will have Griffin Bates. So get those questions in for him. He's a Steuben County historian, but also get your comments in, because when we come back from Griffin Bates, we'll be going over all of your comments. Who do you think Harris is going to pick? How do you think the coverage is going to continue? Is it going to continue in all positive for Harris and let her run out the clock for the next 4 months? Your thoughts, all that, and much more. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and this is a Steuben Senior Services Fund section of the program. That's a mouthful. We've got Griffin Bates, the new Steuben County historian, in the studio today. Good morning, Griffin.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for being on the show. You are relatively new as the Steuben County historian.
I am, yes. I started in January of this year.
Okay, and so that means when you started, it's right around the very beginning of the Hall of Fame process, correct?
It is, yes. That's correct.
So how did it go this year?
Very well. We had 4 candidates that were inducted into the Hall of Fame. It was Charles Alsheimer. He was a prolific nature writer and author. We had Helen Brink, who I do know personally, but I will admit I did not taint the pool at all. She is a wonderful lady. She helped with promoting a lot of history in Steuben County. She's responsible for a lot of the stuff that I have in my collection and the Historical Society as well. There's Dr. Walker, who was a very prolific medicinal doctor who practiced a lot of interesting medicines in the 1800s, one of them being fat removal surgery, which you could call liposuction now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then we also had Otto Marshall. He was a major general. He was a founding, or at least a pioneer of Wheeler, New York, and he helped create the Steuben County Fair, or the Agricultural Society. So,
perfect timing for this then. Coming right up, around the corner. Who nominates the people? I know there's more than just the 4, I'm sure, that end up getting it. Who does the nomination, especially for somebody that's maybe passed quite some time ago?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always say, really, anyone is allowed to nominate a person. There is no filtration system or no specific needs for or requirements for a nomination. If you feel that there's someone from history or someone who is still living that you feel deems to be into the Steuben County Hall of Fame, then you are welcome to send nomination forms. My forms are on my website, at the county government website.
And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But how would you, I know this is only your first time, so I can't say typically, but how many nominations do you expect when you first start the process?
Mainly, it's been only 3, or excuse me, it's been that's for the selection process. Right. But for the nominations, it could be a range of 10, sometimes 15. We've had sometimes large amounts. So it depends. It does put some work on me and the nomination committee.
So you try to narrow it down to 3 or 4 in this case.
Yes.
4. Yep. Now, if someone's interested in nominating someone, the best place to go is then the website?
Yes, that's where my form is. I am going to update it soon. There are a couple things that just need to be updated, but the form will be on the website there.
Now, what goes into, because I'm sure you're part of the committee, what goes into the selection process? You just read up on the history of each individual and at the end vote for it? Or
yes, it's no matter how many nominations we receive, we look at each one, and there's a committee of about 5 from Steuben County who have a vested interest in really promoting the Steuben County Hall of Fame.
Sure.
And then through a couple meetings, we vote on who we think really deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Once that is done, then we send it to the county government to get it approved.
Yeah, the legislature actually votes on this, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Have you ever had any pushback? Oh, you've only been 1 year.
Only 1 year, but in the past, I've heard that there's really never been any pushback. Yeah. It's always just been very good support from the county legislature.
Yeah, because you figure you have the committee who are quote unquote the experts. If you guys like them, right? That's interesting. Is there a physical location where people can visit the hall?
There is at the main Steuben County government building. Okay. It's on the 2nd floor. If you come off the stairway, you hang a right and you'll see the hallway where there's all the Hall of Fame nominees.
And pictures of them, and does it give it a little history or just
some do. The interesting thing about the Hall of Fame is that there are some biographies that are shorter, some are longer, so you will get a varied approach to how the Hall of Fame was approached. Mine is more, I'm going to put a lot of information for each inductee. Yeah.
And I will say, as someone, because years ago I nominated Dwayne Eddy, as people know, we've talked to the mayor about it and all that. It's an easy process. So if you're thinking of nominating someone, just put together, and you have the directions. I put together a little packet, send it in, and it's as simple as that. And then you wait, though. Then you have to wait patiently.
Yes. Yes.
Can people start sending in now, or should they wait? There's an official opening date, right?
In the past, precedent has been that in beginning of January, that's when officially it begins. I am not going to be too picky. If you do happen to send it in, I'll just put it in a file for 2025, and it's no big deal. It will be put into the whole pool for next year's committee.
Okay, and if anybody's wondering, Acom spelled A-C-O-M as in Mary B as in boy. If they want to nominate. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So let me ask, how does someone get interested or make it their goal to become a historian? Like in your case?
That's a good question. It all started when I was a child. Both my parents introduced me to museums, which is why I'm wearing a museum nerd shirt.
Of course.
They really introduced me to history, and my father was a global history teacher at Bath, so
it's
and natural. I had him as a teacher, so it kind of has been cemented in my body as a love of history. And then in around age 12, I started working in museums at the Curtis Museum, and then now I'm working at, not only do I work here at the historian's office, but I'm also working at the Corning Museum of Glass as a museum guide.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm also working at the Historical Society, my neighbors, across the hall from my office.
Wow. So you're busy. Now, do you find as a historian that even in your free time, a lot of your free time is spent looking at history and going to museums and things like that?
Yes. There's rarely a time where I'm either not thinking about history or I'm not looking at history. Yeah.
You're just always curious.
Yes.
That's interesting. So this being the Steuben County historian, you're from Steuben County originally?
Yeah, from
so was this one of your, I don't want to use the term dream job, but was this something you were always aiming for?
Oh, yes. I remember when I was a young kid, when I knew I was going into history, I said one day I want to become a historian, and well, I guess my dreams have come true.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yes.
Yeah. It has been going smooth so far, though, of course. Yeah. What's your, maybe I shouldn't ask this way, but what's your favorite part of your job on a day-to-day basis?
My favorite part of the job is honestly working with the members of the public.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've done some research on a family member or genealogy or anything particular to just what they're curious about, and the stuff that I find for them, it brightens their day, and sometimes it even makes, I do say sometimes it does get them a little emotional to hear about their family. Some of them have never known about who their descendant or ancestors were, and so this is their one chance to peer into their family history.
That's a really good point. Are there areas that you specifically like to explore, whether it's in your free time or just when you're at the office daily?
There are some things that it's like kind of the staples that I know that my office has done before. Genealogy, that's one thing I always focus on. and some local history. Some particular things and curiosities that I focus on are like patents, inventions from Steuben County. It's surprising what you can find, obviously, on the internet, what you can find with weird inventions, and even like the electric chair being invented in South Corning.
Of course.
Yep.
Is there a hub for this information? I mean, I guess I don't know. I'm going to show my ignorance here. So if I want to learn more about Steuben County, how do I go about doing that?
There are two easy ways. One, you can reach out to me. My office is particularly for people history, as I like to call it.
Okay.
I focus on genealogy, family files, obituaries,
Sure.
More archival stuff. If you want more of like a museum approach, the Steuben County Historical Society, my neighbors across the hall from me, they have a larger collection of stuff. So if you go to my office, you will also be at the Historical Society's office.
Oh, interesting. Do you find that people, and is it encouraged for people to donate historic items?
It is, yeah. We always are looking for items. I only just emphasize keep it Steuben County. We do get sometimes archives that are given to us, and it's all given in good faith. But it's something that doesn't fit either of our missions offices.
Yeah, and I'm sure sometimes it can be overwhelming.
It can be, yes.
Things can be big size, little, lots of paperwork, etc. So it's probably a blessing and a curse. You get all this stuff in, and then it's, wow, this just added a lot more to my job, right?
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, since you're new at this, everybody gets a new job, and not new at being a historian, but new at this specific job, and you get a new job and you want to maybe change things up or look at things differently. Do you have goals that you're looking towards?
I do. I do want to expand my office to be more than just an archive. I want it to be a dynamic part of Steuben County. One of the things that my office is really focused on, which was started by my predecessor, Emily Sims.
She did a great job.
Is the Steuben County Awareness, or History Awareness, excuse me.
Yeah.
And that is a collaboration of all of the local historical societies, museums, and town historians that come together, and they want to promote Steuben County history. So that's one area where I'm really trying to be involved in the community in a very big way.
Yeah. I've also got to say, and it just popped in my head, but I've got to mention this. If you are a resident of Steuben County, the newsletter is fantastic.
Oh, yes, the Steuben Echoes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I never thought I'd look forward to something like that. And every time I get it, I'll write from cover to cover, and it's pretty thick. I think it's very, very impressive.
It is. We're actually on the 50th year of producing the Steuben Echo, so it's a big milestone for the Historical Society and Steuben County history. Just a weird anecdote. For some reason, we have lost #1 of our
What's the chances?
newsletter. I know.
The historians lose the most historic issue.
I know.
That's
Somewhere.
You should put a wanted ad in the back. Will you? And I don't know the answer to this either. Will you be at the Steuben County Fair?
Yes, I'll be working on behalf of the Historical Society, not as the county historian, but since I can't ignore my position, I sometimes will share both roles in the same capacity.
Of course. Now, what do you have coming up that maybe people should be made aware of? I mentioned the Echoes. Subscribe to that, but what else do you have coming?
So there is actually, coming up on October 19th and 20th, there will be a Steuben County History Trail weekend. Oh, wow. And that's going to be a big celebration. It's our big year. In the past, it's part of the History Awareness group, which I alluded to before. In the past, they did exhibits, like museum-style exhibits. This year, we wanted to do something completely different, and we're actually going to try to encourage members of the public to actually go through Steuben County and visit as many historical sites, historical societies, museums, as they can possibly fit within at least 2-day weekend, but it doesn't stop there. The maps, we are producing maps, so they're free for everyone, courtesy of Corning Foundation, and they... Despite the fact that there's going to be the weekend, you are welcome to just use the map and explore all Steuben County at any time that you feel you want to try a new location that you never knew of.
So almost like, for lack of a better word, a scavenger hunt. You can do this at your own pace. So there's not like we're all meeting at this location at 9 a.m.
No.
Oh, that's a great idea. Where can someone get the map?
Well, they are in printing at the moment. Okay. But once they are printed and ready to be distributed, we are going to be distributing to some of the locality public spaces like a library or a government building. I will be promoting that on my Facebook page, and I'll be sharing. There's actually a Steuben County History Awareness group Facebook page, a separate page. You can go to that website or to the Facebook page, and that's where we'll be promoting where exactly they can be found and just taken for use.
And what I like about that is, like you said, it doesn't just have to be the weekend.
No.
Grab that map and just have fun and chip away, because I'm sure we'll all be surprised at how many stops will be on the trail.
I was even surprised by how many. And there are some that I never knew actually were around, and this is the first time that some of these smaller organizations have had a real chance to actually get some just deserved attention.
Of course. Well, Griffin, thanks so much for doing the show this morning, and keep us updated on any future events, and remind us, I know you always do, when it's time for people to nominate for the Hall, and best of luck at your somewhat new job.
Thank you.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking. We have so many comments coming in. Thank you again to Griffin Bates for being on the program. And again, if you didn't tune in at 6 o'clock, if you set your alarm at 7 to watch Frankly Speaking, you missed a lot. That's why you've got to catch all 2 hours, because Mike Sapraicone, running for United States Senate, stopped in the studio and gave us not a 10-minute interview, not a 15-minute interview, a nearly 50-minute interview. And we covered everything, not even just his Senate run against Gillibrand. We covered all the issues of the day. That was a real treat. And maybe you had an opportunity to see him at the Chemung County Fair. We heard so many people talking nicely about the Chemung County Fair. But let's get to the comments. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. Well, it seemed like the election would never get here. And now it seems that time is not on our side, with all the tricks that the Democrats have used and will continue to pull out of the hat. Yes, possibly new energy, but same game. I totally agree. That's what concerns me with the time running out. Time is not on our side. They can prop her up for 4 months. 4 months is nothing to them. They're not going to push for interviews. They're not going to push to the tough questions. They love the Kamala mania, as Van Jones has said. So I would say that is our biggest obstacle as of right now. A short 4-month window. And Trump has talked about it, that you campaign against somebody, as in Joe Biden, for so long, and then they switch midstream. And keep in mind, they just gave it to her. She never received a Democrat vote. She didn't have to go through a primary process. She didn't have to do any of that. So, yes, it is a rigged game that is now playing in their favor and will be rewarded if the media has their way. Continuing, another comment from a different viewer. In my opinion, California and New York have been the test beds for what is happening to the country at large. Could not agree more. And the ironic thing is, New York will look at California and copy them and in their failed policies, and vice versa. California will look at us and go, oh, we'll have to copy that bad policy. It's always like a competition to see who can do worse the quickest. Continuing, though, with what the viewer had to say, the big money donors call the shots. They're doing the same thing over again because it works. Even exposing their upsetting actions gets swept away by the left media. Yeah, for instance, taking the vote away from the Democratic voter. Not trusting the Democrat voter. That's a prime example of that. Or what is probably one of the biggest scandals and cover-ups in presidential history, Kamala Harris and others in the White House covering up Joe Biden's mental decline. So I would agree more. I couldn't agree more. But I got to finish what this viewer said. All of us need to talk up about Frankly Speaking to everyone we run into. I do. Yes, thank you. Please do. Talk up Frankly Speaking. It's a good conversation starter. Thank you so much for the nice comment. Frank, what happened in Olympic boxing seems to be the way of the world as far as the leadership of world organizations go. The United Nations, the WHO, and now the IOC tend to lean toward what seems to be the stereotypical Muslim treatment of women. Yes, in Muslim countries. I understand what you mean. They don't seem to respect women as much as the Western world does. Watching that Olympic boxing, and thank you, Ken, thank you for that comment. Watching that boxing was unsettling. Disturbing to watch a biological male beat on a biological female. It was, there's a lot of controversy over it, and that's why the Trump campaign saying this is what Kamala wants. But we'll continue with a different comment. Good morning again, Frank. Good morning again. Kamala is happy to slide in undercover. She knows that she has a majority of the, quote, educated college students by default because of her reproductive stance, the loan forgiveness, and the woke ideology. Yes, a lot of talk about woke, and that's why they have those subcultures, not the right word.
those offshoots with these Zoom meetings we've been talking about. White women for Harris, white dudes for Trump. I keep saying that. White dudes for Harris. It's just going to continue. And it's only going to get worse. And again, they just got to run out the clock. That's all there is to it. Another comment, and this must have been in reference to this talking about the history of Steuben County and museums and like that. How about starting a museum of shame? Give the 12-year reign of terror that Mario Cuomo did in New York State. Maybe he could be your first victim, or his son, Andrew, or well, we can continue. Thank you for those. I see others coming in. We'll get to those after the break. Going back to this point about the media propping her up and pop culture propping Harris up, Kristen Fleming has a great piece at the New York Post this morning. And I have to take a break, and I'm going to tell you about it when we come back because we ran a little late with Griffin Bates. We thank him again for being on the program. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, keep those great comments coming in. And we are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. A few more comments from viewers. Things are only the way of the world if we allow it. Unfortunately, by the time we change things with our votes, 5 months is a long time for the damage to continue in our country. What can we do in the meantime? Great question. And that's another part of this cover-up and the scandal we're talking about with Joe Biden's mental health. Keep in mind, he is the president of the United States for nearly 6 months. As we see so much destruction going on throughout the world. Remember, under Trump, there was a peace and prosperity. Under Biden, we're look at Israel, look at Ukraine, etc. So I don't know the answer in the meantime. I guess expose them as best as we can for what they're doing. Another comment, different viewer. Every person should be calling Board of Elections, local and state. I am still waiting for answers. Thank you very much. Okay. Kristen Fleming says, live from New York, it's Kamala Harris's presidential myth building. Deadline reported yesterday that Maya Rudolph will return to Saturday Night Live this fall to reprise her role as Harris. If history is any indication, Rudolph, who has already portrayed Harris on the show 10 times and even won an Emmy for it, will give us the vice president as a fun, fierce, wine-drinking aunt, ready to disembowel her stuffy opponents with a withering takedown. It is true that both Harris and Trump have much to offer in terms of parody potential. Trump with his bombastic speech, you know all of that. Just imagine what Saturday Night Live could do with her interview with Lester Holt, the one where she pointed out that she, the border czar, had not yet been to the actual border. Quote, and I haven't been to Europe, she responded with that uncomfortable laugh. But I predict only one candidate will be made to look like a buffoon because Saturday Night Live has abandoned its old both sides approach to political skewering. Gone are the days when the left and the right got the equal walloping that they deserve. A precedent that disappeared once Obama came into office, and former show writer Jim Downey noted the president, quote, had no flaw or hook that you could caricature. It's disappointing, but it all falls in line with how Harris's campaign has been treated. Because it turns out that Trump isn't just running against Harris, he is running against liberal media and the cultural institutions that are building a cocoon around the vice president, creating a Kamala character the nation can see in the Oval Office. That's why they're not pushing for the interviews. They like this caricature, this fierce aunt. The media is allowing the Democrat Party to rewrite Harris's history from her far-left policy stances to her role heading up the border. Over the weekend, Politico ran a story about her stance on fracking, which she explicitly said on camera in 2019 that she wants to ban. Quote, Harris's campaign pledges she won't ban fracking after Trump accusation, Politico reported. After coming under fire, they dropped the Trump accusations from the headline, but kept it in the story text. We've been told repeatedly by the media that Harris was not in charge of the border, despite a deluge of stories and clips from 2021 to suggest otherwise. This week's New York Magazine cover proclaims Camelot, with a picture of a laughing Harris on top of a coconut, while Gen Z TikTok crowns her brat. As we all know by now, that's a good thing, with memes galore. Esquire dug into her cookbook collection. The Los Angeles Times actually ran a story headlined, Kamala Harris is a cook, and she knows her LA restaurants. Will it help her win? If it does, heaven help us. We get what we deserve. We're all burnt toast. In the absence of real reporting, those frothy features are ridiculous. Every publication from the New York Times to the New Yorker has covered her vibe shift. But not much about her policy shift. Harris is back scrapping ICE, She was a Green New Deal sponsor and ranked the most liberal member of the Senate by Government Track in 2019. Though that's been memory hold. They took that down, mind you. GovTrack changed their mind recently, retracting the label and saying rankings using data from a single year was not sufficient to create a reliable portrait of the activity of the legislator. Funny how it just became a problem now. That's the first time they realized that was an issue. Don't forget, Harris has insisted all along that Biden is spry and healthy. She was a part of this major cover-up. She has not endured the primary process, and the campaign she ran in 2019 revealed her to be an unserious candidate with many flaws and little substance. And the media realizes that and recognizes that, and that's why they don't care about questioning her. She has had 2 political rallies, including one where she essentially acted as an MC for a Megan Thee Stallions performance. The Dems are running the same campaign they did in 2020 for Biden, from the basement. And with only 3 months to keep up this charade, it's entirely possible she'll be smuggled into the White House. So much for saving democracy. Meanwhile, Trump is saying he wants to renegotiate the terms of their debates, which he agreed upon with Biden, not Harris. But at least he is open to entering hostile territory, as we've talked about with the National Black Association of Journalists. Depending on which social media ecosystem you inhabit, that attendance at that panel was either a smashing success or a Hindenburg-level disaster. But let's not pretend Harris is running. She's maneuvering through this new campaign. One of those anti-gravity treadmills, moving her legs but not feeling the impact of pavement or reality. And Team Trump is allowing it. Instead of exposing this nonsense and focusing on his opponent's true political identity, Trump is getting into the mud on her racial identity. The Trump camp needs to focus on substance and less on personal attacks, or they can add themselves to the list of people they are running against. All right, let's take a short break, wrap things up, get those last-minute comments in on this outstanding Friday morning edition of Frankly Speaking, if I do say so myself. Stay with us. And we are back, wrapping up things here on the Friday edition of Frankly Speaking. A couple last comments. As far as the boxing drama, says a viewer, for me it's twofold. As a real woman, I personally don't understand the sport and really don't think women belong in it. But, that being said, a woman in the ring shouldn't have her hard-working dreams squelched by a dude, white or otherwise. White dudes for Harris, I think that's a reference to. That's a fair point. And that's one that I think the feminists have had kind of an issue with when it comes to the push for transgender athletes. Boy, it was tough to watch. Another comment from a different viewer. Frank, apparently we will know late Monday to see if Kamala gets enough delegates to officially be the Democrats' candidate. I hope I'm wrong that she was just a placeholder and the real candidate will emerge at the DNC. Kamala is the weakest candidate the Dems could possibly run. They will have to pull out all the stops to cheat her into victory. She has the best chance for Trump to win. The only problem with that candidate, and I don't disagree, she is the best chance for Trump to win, because she was not liked. She ran a horrible campaign in 2016 or 2019. The big problem is the time. 3 to 4 months. The media can run it out, just like they did with Biden. I mean, she's already talking about doing a Zoom interview with the organization that Trump spoke with. So it's so reminiscent of Biden, but they only have to do it for 4 months. It's scary what they're able to get away with. And I don't think you'll see the hard-hitting press conferences or interviews. If she does do interviews, it'll be with friendly media. I mean, we're going on day 12 without any type of press conference after being the presumptive nominee. A couple of quick things to show you more about the media's bias. Why calling Trump weird is freaking Republicans out. It is? It's not freaking me out. It's just become cringeworthy. It's just become unsettling. Governor Pritzker was on MSNBC's The Beat, and he says Trump bewildered by Kamala Harris. See, he got a lot of attention because he came up with the weird line, so now he must be looking for other things to say that might be a catchphrase like bewildered. Okay. Peggy Noonan, the fight of Trump's political life. Kamala Harris has the wind at her back. Her strengths became clear in the past 2 weeks. Really? What's that? Because there's been no substance? And she reads from a teleprompter? Trump wants to stop taxing Social Security benefits. Here's what that could mean for seniors, says CNN. You never guess what what CNN says. Bad for seniors, yeah. Bad for seniors because then there's not more taxes. And everybody wants more taxes, more money coming into the government so they can waste it. That's essentially their argument. Never mind how they destroy the government, destroy the Social Security by stealing from it on such a regular basis. But we are out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I know it went too quick. Thank you to all of our guests. If you missed it, Mike Sapraicone, candidate for the United States Senate, running against Gillibrand, was our guest for almost the first full hour. You can find out more at MikeSapraicone4Senate.com. Thank you to Griffin Bates, Steuben County historian. Now, this was a Friday to remember. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the waves. And we'll be back Monday morning starting at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We will see you bright and early on Monday. Have a great weekend, and I look forward to it already.